Hi, folks. My name is James Gammon. I am a customer solutions engineer on the customer engagement team at Unit21. And today I want to talk to you about using FFIP, Flat-File Ingestion Pathway, to enhance your data in Unit21. So let's jump into this little agenda that we've written up for you. Um, you know, we're already in the midst of it, but we're going to do a quick introduction. We're going to address the quote unquote size of the problem that FFIP will solve. We want to talk about the product itself and how it will provide your teams value. And then we want to talk about how FFIP stacks up against the standard API integration pathway. Following that, we will jump into the product offering itself. We'll look at how FFIP actually operates and give you guys a sneak peek as to how this all works, right? So I'm going to go ahead and jump into that little introduction. Um, you know, you already know me. I'm James. We talked about this earlier. Look a little bit different than I did. Oof, what was that? 3 years ago? Frightening, isn't it? So let's talk about Unit21. Enough about me. Unit21 as a whole, as a company, we're on a mission to stop bad actors by proactively mitigating risks tied to fraud, money laundering, and other financial crimes. We work with some of the leading fintechs spanning payment companies, banking as a service, crypto companies, marketplaces, as well as leading banks and credit unions across the world. Um, Unit21's risk and compliance infrastructure empowers your team to proactively combat financial crime and make informed decisions throughout the customer lifecycle. So, this is all about how you want to operate within the system, right? It's configurable to your organization's unique risk profile. And we like to unify your data silos, your product lines, and ensure that you have everything in one spot, in one platform, on one platform, right? And the idea here is that we're trying to create this single pane of glass so that your team can come in and you have everything available, right? You have the data, you have the case management operations, you have the SAR filings. Everything is condensed into one spot so that you don't have to switch tabs. You don't have to look to another platform to get, you know, your entities or your customers' date of birth, right? It's all here for you, and that allows your team to increase the efficiency in both monitoring and investigating these unique cases that come up. Um, Now for the thing that everybody is probably most excited about, we've got some numbers for you, right? And I think that you can read, so I'll let you read through this. The biggest one that I wanted to touch on is that we've raised close to $100 million from Google, Tyler Global, or sorry, excuse me, Tiger Global, and other leading VCs. So, we have a strong backing, but we're also doing our best to put forth, our best effort to bring value to your teams. And I think that FFIP, specific to this demonstration, is a very, very powerful product. And you know what? Let's get into it so that I can show you rather than talk your ear off about it, right? So FFIP is really all about facilitating data upload for your teams, right? We want to limit the amount of engineering resources that are necessary in order to either A, initially load data, or B, enrich existing data sets. So our goal with FFIP is to empower your non-technical teams or semi-technical teams to work with and manipulate data that is present within Unit 21 rather than pulling in engineering resources. It also facilitates iterations on data sets. So, again, it allows for compliance teams to make changes and tweaks that don't necessarily require engineering resources and planning and, the whole jumping through hoops, song and dance that needs to happen when, resources are required like this. In addition to enrichment, it also provides a faster time to value. So initial implementation, post-sale cycle, your team comes to our implementation team. We implement you utilizing FFIP. That is, in general, a quicker and more efficient approach to loading your data and mapping your data initially. So let's talk about the other option, right, which is API ingestions. So we have two primary ingestion methods as well as enrichment, ingestion methods. I think FFIP personally is a little bit better for the enrichment piece. But the idea is, APIs take a little bit longer to implement. There's more development kind of resource and work that is necessary in order to build out those pipelines initially. FFIP generally happens more quickly. And the reason behind that, and we'll get into this a little bit later, is because realistically, your team just needs to upload a file, right? Rather than build a full pipeline that lines up with Unit21's API schema. So that's the general takeaway here is that, APIs are great, but FFIP is also great, and it works more quickly. It is a quicker time to value, and generally speaking, it is a little bit less of a lift on your engineering team. Now, there are a couple of additional points that are listed on this slide. Things like, encryption that can be done on your end when sending data via APIs. I do want to say that FFIP is just as secure. We utilize, Amazon's S3 buckets, and that allows your team to essentially just send over a file, and then we pick that up, we process it, and we load your data for you. So security-wise, these two are one and the same. There's just a functional difference in how that security is achieved. In addition to that, the things that these two kind of pathways share is that we adhere to Unit21 standard SLAs, and we provide support and guidance both through the implementation team during the implementation process and the support team once your team has gone live. So at no point will you receive a difference in support when utilizing either one of these pathways. All right, so let's talk about why FFIP is so effective, or it has been in the past. And, again, I've touched on this already, but really it is all about efficiency, right? Your team provides us, Unit21, with a file, whether that be a JSON file or a CSV file, that's up to your team. But you provide that file to us. We have a discussion with your team about what type of data you'd like to see within Unit21, how you'd like it to be mapped out, whether that be, custom data, standard fields within Unit21 schema. This is all something that is discussed either during the implementation process, if this is your primary ingestion technique, or after the fact if you choose to enrich your data set. So at no point will your team be in the dark. The key here is that you will not have to do the transformation work. Rather, Unit21 will take care of that. So not only do we utilize FFIP for both enrichment and primary ingestion, but it also works great for historical backfills, right? So overall, the idea here is that Unit 21 will help you get your data in more efficiently, right? And we will always have that open channel of communication. But realistically, rather than having to do the transformations on your end to that data, Unit 21 will handle that. You just give us the raw data. We have a discussion about how it should come in, and then Unit 21 shoulders the burden of actually getting that data in properly. All right, so let's talk about the big three, right? Before we get into the demo here. Um, I've said it before, I'll say it again, right? FFIP in general is just easier to use from a non-engineering standpoint, right? It allows you to do things or work with your data directly through the user interface rather than writing code, building infrastructure to facilitate API ingestion. So it's easy to use. It allows for enrichment after the initial data set and schema has been determined, and generally it's more flexible. So let's go ahead and jump into how it works, right? It sounds great, sounds exciting, but does it actually make sense? Does it actually work? The answer is yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking to you about it. Step one, we want to, again, determine what type of data you want within the system. Generally, we want to think about what types of rules you intend to build and how you intend to run your investigations. That allows us to identify and ultimately determine what type of data needs to be present in order for your team to effectively utilize Unit 21. So that's step one, identify that data, produce those files. Step two, we want to load that data to Unit 21, right? So we either drag and drop it to the system through the UI, or you can do so programmatically through the use of two endpoints that, again, we can, add additional context to down the road. So, excuse me. There are two ways to do it, manually or automatically. That would be step two, loading those files. Step three, Unit 21 takes over. Again, we have discussions about this, ensure that you guys are comfortable with the data that's coming through and how it's formatted. But ultimately, we cover the transformation portion of this data upload stage. Step four, we start to load these files in an ongoing fashion. So it all starts with data requirements. We then load and transform these files. We confirm that the data looks good, and then we begin the ongoing process of loading this data so that your team can run ongoing rules and conduct ongoing investigations against live data. All right, so let's jump in and take a look at what this product looks like. So this is just a demo environment that I've got loaded up here. This is the Flat-File Ingestion tab. The idea here is that you can create separate streams for separate objects within Unit 21. There are three primary objects. I won't go into this too deeply, but Unit 21's data structure has three separate objects: entities, which would be users and businesses, and essentially your customers, right? Instruments are going to be payment facilitators, things like bank accounts, credit cards, debit cards, crypto wallets. And then you have transactions, which are the culmination of these three objects, or those other two objects, I should say, which are monetary or I guess non-monetary actions. So logins, action events, versus transactions, which would be, James goes to Best Buy and taps his credit card and buys a laptop, right? So those are the three main objects. Right? If we go ahead and click this Add Stream button, you can see that we have these objects available in addition to one additional one, which would be external alerts, which would be our case management offering. So you've got transactions, actions, which are those events, and then entities and instruments. Now, there are a number of different options here, and this is, something that I probably should not get into, because it'll take a bit to explain, but it's certainly something that we can have a discussion about after the fact. But the idea is that we produce files for each individual Unit 21 object stream. So if we cancel out of this very quickly, you can see, we have a large number of different entity streams, right? You've got user data, for instance, and business data or business user data. And these are both entity streams, but you can have different files with different formats that go into different streams that ultimately result in loading of different data types. So you've got entities, you've got transactions, you've got instruments. Now, if we were to click into one of these schemas, we could go ahead and hit Map Schema. You'll see that we pull in this file, right? This file information, and we're able to ultimately map that out. We'll be able to take those column headers and say, okay, entity ID should be represented by this header, first name by this, middle name by this, and so on. So that's how it works generally. And the idea here again is that Unit 21 is going to manage the majority of the effort when it comes to mapping out these files and these streams. So your team provides us with those files, and then we come in, either the implementation team or the Unit 21 customer success team, and we say, what do you want to do? Let's make this happen for you. So we handle the mapping, we handle the majority of the work. We should wrap this up and give you guys some time back here. So let's just very quickly talk again about those benefits of FFIP. Less engineering effort and investment, less planning, less negotiation to ensure that the resources are freed up and available. Quicker time to value. Your team provides us with files, we map it, we load it, and then we all validate it together. And then in general, this also can be achieved through API, but the better the data within the system, and that Unit 21 system that is, the more effective you can, or more effectively you can utilize the system. So the better the data is, the better the platform is in general for your teams. Now, again, I'm kind of just talking about these things, but the numbers speak for themselves here. I worked with the implementation team for a while, and I ran a lot of implementations utilizing FFIP. And I will say generally that FFIP has been more efficient, and the results have been in line with the standard API integrations, if not better. So we've got some numbers here: 28% faster implementation time. The sooner you're up and running within the system, the better, right? So FFIP in general is a very effective ingestion pathway. And I think it's certainly something that, under the right circumstances, would be a very powerful approach for your team and other teams.
Thank you for joining our demo showcase. There are 11 more Unit 21 demos you can dive into while attending Fraud Fighters Virtual Summit today, so please do so. Alternatively, if you're ready to learn more about Unit 21 from one of our fraud and AML practitioners, you can simply scan the QR code on the left and request a personalized demo. And last but not least, I'm excited to share that we are in the midst of data gathering for our third annual State of Fraud and AML report. We're seeking to make this research the most informative findings yet, but we're unable to uncover and publish these insights without your contribution. Scan the QR code on the right to fill out the survey. It'll take no more than 10 minutes and it'll uncover invaluable industry trends and insights so we can all better combat risk and compliance together. Thanks so much for contributing to our research.